In the rich tapestry of Native American folklore, the natural world is alive with mystical beings that embody the spirit of the land. Among these enigmatic creatures are the Manishi of the Cree, the Chenikes of the Totonac, the Maki of the Mohegan, and the Yasuri of the Catawba. Each of these beings holds a unique place in their respective cultures, serving as guardians, tricksters, intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds. Together, these four mystical beings highlight the profound connection between Native American cultures and the natural world around us, reminding us all of the enduring power of their stories and the importance of living in harmony with nature. I'm David, and this is Strange Highness. If you like this sort of content, I ask you to give me a like and subscribe. And I want to give a huge thank you to all of those who have subbed. We're almost at 500 strange and weird people, just like me and you. The Manishi are fascinating beings from Cree folklore. They're known for their mischievous nature and unique appearance. These small, semi-humanoid creatures are often described as having very thin, lanky arms and legs, with large heads that lack a nose. They are sexdactylous, meaning they have 6 fingers on each hand. Their skin is said to be pale, almost translucent, allowing them to blend seamlessly with the rocky shores and riverbanks that they inhabit. The Manishi are renowned for their trickster abilities. They are incredibly agile and quick, able to move silently through nature in their natural habitats. Their primary duty, as believed by the Cree at least, is to protect the natural world and maintain the balance between humans and nature. They are known to play pranks on humans, often leading them astray in the wilderness or causing minor inconveniences throughout their days. However, these tricks are not meant to harm, but to teach respect for the environment and its inhabitants to a human who has gone astray in their own life. In pre-colonial times, the Cree people had a complex relationship with the Manishi. The Cree respected these beings, understanding their role in the natural order. It was common for Cree hunters and gatherers to leave small offerings, such as food or trinkets, at places believed to be inhabited by the Manishi. These offerings were a sign of respect and a way to ensure safe passage through the Manishi's territory. The Cree also believed that the Manishi had the ability and could bring good fortune or even misfortune, depending on how they had been treated. Stories were passed down through generations about how the Manishi helped those who respected nature and played tricks on those who did not. This belief reinforced the importance of living in harmony with the environment around them. One of the most famous legends about the Manishi involves a young Cree hunter named Wapiska. According to the legend, Wapiska was known for his exceptional hunting skills and his deep respect for the forest. One day, while hunting near a river, he encountered a group of Manishi. Instead of being frightened, Wapiska greeted them respectfully and offered them some of his catch. The Manishi were pleased with his gesture of respect, and they could see the goodness within his heart, and so they decided to reward him. They led Wapiska to a hidden cave that was filled with ancient artifacts and treasures, a collection they had amounted over the eons. Among these treasures was a magical amulet that granted the wearer enhanced strength and agility, just as the Manishi have. The Manishi told Wapiska that so long as he continued to respect nature and all of its inhabitants, the amulet would allow him to bring himself great fortune. Wapiska returned to his village and shared his story, eventually becoming a revered hero and figure among his people. The legend of Wapiska and the Manishi became a powerful tribal reminder of the importance of respecting the natural order and any beings that may inhabit it. In modern times, stories of encounters with the Manishi have become less common, but there are still occasional reports of sightings and even encounters with these beings. One such encounter happened in the early 2000s, when a small group of campers near the Churchill River in Manitoba claimed to have seen small, strange figures moving swiftly among the rocks at dusk. According to their account, the figures had large heads and thin limbs, matching the description of the Manishi. The campers reported that their belongings had been mysteriously rearranged during the night, and that they had even heard soft and high-pitched laughter echoing through the trees. Intrigued, but not frightened, they left small offerings of food and trinkets by the riverbank before leaving the area. And when they returned to the site a year later, they found that the offerings had been taken, and in their place were small, intricately carved stones. The campers took this as a sign of gratitude from the Manishi and shared their story with local Cree communities, who confirmed that the description did indeed match the legendary tricksters. The Chenikes are fascinating and enigmatic little beings from the Teutonic folklore. They're deeply rooted in the cultural and spiritual traditions of the Teutonic people of Mexico. These small, sprite-like creatures are known for their dual nature as both protectors and, once again, as mischievous tricksters. And this is a sort of pattern that seems to repeat with all these Native American stories about the little people. They all seem to act as some sort of guardian, either of nature itself or of some wild and sacred place. And to do their actions of guarding those places, they engage in different acts of mischief against humans or people who would venture too far from villages. Things like leading you off the trail, getting you lost, making you tired and sleepy while a storm blows in. These are all tales and features that are shared amongst all these different little people of the Native Americas. And I think it's important that we kind of start to piece that together when we're listening to these tales. The Chenikes are typically described as being small and human-like. They stand 2 to 3 feet tall. They possess a blend of both human and animal features, often like pukwudgies, and are depicted with pointed ears, playful faces, and sometimes even animal-like limbs or tails. Their skin is said to be rough and earthy, blending seamlessly with the forest environment they inhabit. And some legends even describe them as having the faces of elderly men or women, despite having childlike and small bodies. The abilities of the Chenikes are as varied as their appearances. They are often known to possess supernatural powers, including the ability to become invisible, to shapeshift into other creatures, and to move with incredible speed and agility. These abilities make them formidable guardians of the forest, rivers, and mountains that they call home. But they can also manipulate the environment around them. They cause plants to grow or wither at will, and they have a deep connection to the elemental forces of nature, including those which reside in storms. In pre-colonial times, the Totonac people had a profound respect for the Chenikes. They viewed them as essential guardians of the natural world, and even of the Totonac people themselves. The Chenikes were believed to protect the forest, rivers, and wildlife, ensuring the delicate balance of nature was always maintained. And they were also thought to safeguard the spiritual well-being of the Totonac people, acting as intermediaries between the human and the spirit worlds. As with many other stories of the little people, the Totonac would often leave offerings for the Chenikes, such as food, small trinkets, or handmade crafts to show their respect and their gratitude. These offerings were placed at the edges of forests, near rivers, or at the base of sacred trees, which were believed to be the homes of the Chenikes. And in return, the Chenikes would protect the Totonac people from harm, ensure bountiful harvests, and guide their hunters to abundant game. However, the Chenikes were also known for their mischievous nature. They would play tricks on those who disrespected natural areas, or failed to leave them offerings. These tricks could range from hiding personal belongings to leading a traveler astray in the forest, causing them to become lost for days. Most of the antics Chenikes would play on people were considered playful lessons, things that were intended to teach respect of the natural world and its inhabitants to a person who had somehow gone astray. One of the most enduring legends of the Chenikes involves a young Totonac girl named Hochito. According to the legend, Hochito was known for her kindness and her deep connection to nature. She would often spend her days in the forest, tending to plants and animals, and leaving offerings for the Chenikes and other spirits. One day, while she was exploring a particularly dense part of the forest, Hochito encountered a group of Chenikes, and instead of being frightened, she greeted them warmly and offered them a basket of fresh fruit. The Chenikes were pleased with her generosity and decided to reward her. They led Hochito to a hidden grove filled with rare and beautiful flowers, all of which possessed magical and medicinal properties. The Chenikes told Hochito that these flowers could heal any illness and bring great fortune to those who possessed them. They instructed her to take only what she needed and to continue respecting nature as she had. Hochito returned to her village with the flowers and used them to heal the sick and bring prosperity to her people. The legend of Hochito and the Chenikes had become a powerful reminder of the importance of respecting nature and those beings that protected it, not only for yourself, but for the future, for other people, and for the fact of what wonders may still exist out there for us to find, such as the medicinal herbs she brought home to her village. In Mexican media, the Chenikes have been represented both positively and negatively for centuries. The Mexican writer Artemio de Valle Arizpe worked as a diplomat in Spain and spent time in the General Archive of the Indies, where he discovered a great interest in Mexican colonial history. He wrote many books about the legends and folklore that existed during the Spanish colonial period, stories that were during that time intended to portray the legends of the Chenikes with negative connotations. They were often seen as creatures that worked with the devil. In his story, Un Duende y un Perro, An Elf and a Dog, which takes place in the late 1500s, the creature that pesters Donna Louise is described as a demon. The Duende, little person, would beat her, leaving her with bruises, and would torment her so much that Donna Louise spent her remaining years in fear throughout the story. In modern times, the legends and stories of the Chenikes and other Mexican little people have become more a thing of intrigue than a thing to be excluded as a work of the devil. People are looking at the folklore now as a part of their cultural history, a part of the history of the people who lived in the lands before them, and of something that can still possibly be encountered. The Maki Wisug, also known simply as the Little People, are an integral part of the Mohegan folklore. These mystical beings are believed to inhabit the rocky hills and dense forest of Mohegan Hill in Connecticut. Their presence, just like the other little people, is deeply woven into the cultural and spiritual fabric of the Mohegan peoples, and they serve, once again, as both guardians, protectors, and as tricksters. The Maki Wisug are described as small humanoid creatures that stand 2 to 2.5 feet tall. They have a blend of human and otherworldly features, often depicted with long pointed ears, large almond eyes, and delicate, almost ethereal bodies. Their skin is said to be rough and earthy and helps them blend in to their natural environment. They wear moccasins made from the flowers of the whippoorwill, which is reflected in their name, Maki Wisug, meaning the whippoorwill moccasins. Now, if you've listened to Volume 1, you may remember a description of another sort of little people, the Yunwi Sundi of the Cherokee. The descriptions of how they appear, what they do and can do, and their role in the world leads me to suspect that the Yunwi Sundi of the Cherokee, Maki Wasug of the Mohegan, could in fact be either the same sort of creatures or very close relatives species-wise. Maki Wasug possess a wide range of supernatural abilities. They can become invisible at will. They can move through the forest with incredible speeds and do it silently. And they can manipulate the natural world around them. They are also known to have the power to root people to the ground with a single point of their finger if they feel disrespected. Their connection to nature is so profound, it allows them to communicate with any animal and to even control the growth of plants. Before the arrival of Europeans, the Mohegan people had a deep respect for the Maki Wasug and viewed them as essential guardians of the world around them. The Maki Wasug were believed to protect the forest, rivers, and wildlife, and ensured not only that the balance between humans and nature was maintained, but that the Mohegan people would never go hungry because the game and the food in the wilds they relied on would always be safeguarded. But the Maki Wasug weren't only guardians of the natural world. The Mohegan saw them as spiritual intermediaries, able to carry prayers of the people into the spirit realm, and able to converse with spirits and bring that information back to the people here. But for those humans brave enough to seek out an encounter with Maki Wasug, you must know they have their own set of rules of etiquette. It is said that those who see the little people should never look directly at them, because they think it's quite rude, and if they catch you staring, they might point a finger at you, rooting you to the ground, while they take your belongings. Another rule is to never speak to them in summer when they are most active. That is when they're busy, and they don't need to be disturbed by a pesky human. It is said that when the English settlers first came and disrupted the traditional ways of Mohegan life, that many of the Mohegan people forgot about helping the Maki Wasug, and as a result, many Mohegans and even many Maki Wasug fell ill. This was known as the time of bad spirits, but there was a medicine woman who would bring help to the people. One night during a terrible storm, she heard the whippoorwill outside. She looked out her window, expecting to see it in the figure of a bird or some other creature. But instead, a small boy stood in the rain on her doorstep. It turned out he was in fact a grown Maki Wasug named Wigun, and he told her to come help someone who was sick. Though the storm was fierce, he led her through the woods, out into the forest, into the mouth of a cave. As they descended into the earth, the storm seemed to disappear above them, for they were now in the realm of the little people. Wigun led her to a beehive-shaped chamber of rocks. Inside the chamber, an old woman lay on a stone bed, and she was very ill. The Maki Wasug told the medicine woman that this was in fact Granny Squanit, a hero and legend from Mohegan folklore. The Maki Wasug healers often looked to Granny Squanit for help when they were in dire need of healing other people. But now she was the one who was sick, and the storms wouldn't abate until she was made well. The medicine woman treated Granny Squanit for nearly a full moon before she began to get better. In return for the medicine woman restoring Granny Squanit's health, Maki Wasug gave her a basket of gifts and told her to remember them always. They then blindfolded her to take her back home. Only when she returned did she open the basket. Inside she found pieces of quartz crystals, painted skins, and bunches of medicinal herbs. The stories of the Mohegan and the Maki Wasug are interesting because these little creatures aren't all powerful, and in fact, as can be seen with the medicine woman, they often seek out help from the Mohegan people. It's a strange sort of cultural interaction between species and between spirit world and ours. And it's one that has led the Mohegan people through times of colonialism, disease, and disaster. For centuries, the Catawba people of the Carolinas have had encounters and told tales of a creature known as the Yasuri. And while the other little people that we've talked about may be known for being mischievous tricksters and playing pranks, the Yasuri are known for getting quite vicious in how they deal with humans. The name Yasuri translates to the wild little people. They're known for being tricksters and are generally depicted as small, but otherwise ordinary-looking people, albeit maybe a bit more hair on their bodies. They live in the most remote places of the wilderness, and oftentimes make their homes out of the stumps of fallen trees. The Catawba people say they're known for eating a wide variety of different foods, such as foraging for acorns, tree roots, and fungi, and also hunting small animals, such as frogs, other reptiles, and even insects. But the Yasuri don't always stick to their wilderness, and at times, they've been known to not only interact with people, but to even try to steal children. At night, Catawba mothers would bring in their children's clothing, never leaving it on the line to dry overnight for fear that the Yasuri would come and place curses on the clothes so that the children who wear them would develop colic or other illnesses. And for those people who truly disrespected or upset the Yasuri, the little people were known to be able to fire invisible arrows into the chests of humans. Arrows which would cause the person to fall into an illness, develop a fever, and die overnight. And while there's no way to physically fend off the Yasuri, there is a Catawba ritual that keeps them at bay. The Catawba elders, shaman, and medicine women believe that if you rub tobacco on your hands and recite the ancient Catawba prayer, Dugari ini parati ne Yasuri de me hana te we stere yanamusi sere, which basically means, we give thanks to you, Yasuri, for teaching us, being the example of how to be better stewards, better people, that they will be pleased, they will see the goodness in your heart, and they'll hopefully leave you alone. The Passamaquoddy people of northeastern Canada have an ancient belief and connection to a little people known as the Mwest. They're a small, human-like creature with hairy faces and sometimes able to even grow beards. And instead of living in faraway forest and near serene lake shores, they choose to make their homes carved of lithic stones atop the cliffs, atop the mountains, and high peaks of Canada. Now it has to be noted here that the physical description of the Mwest, along with the places they live and how they interact, are extremely similar to those Icelandic legends of the Huldufolk, which are of course elusive elf-like creatures that are supposed to make their homes within the volcanic rocks which blanket the land of fire and ice. This connection is made even more intriguing by what we now know to have been medieval interactions between Icelandic Vikings and the maritime natives they called Skrælingjar, which were documented in both Icelandic sagas and later verified throughout the 90s and early 2000s with numerous archaeological discoveries made throughout the northern tips of Newfoundland. And they behave much in the same way as the Huldufolk. They act as guardians of the rocky places, the places where the tectonic plates come together and sandwich to form fault lines and volcanoes, the places where gemstones and other precious metals are found. To guard these places, they're known to play sacred flutes, harmonies which lure people off the trails and into the wilderness, or cause people to become lost and disoriented. And these tunes can even tame and calm wild beasts. And while the Mwest are a sort of nature spirit on their own, there are ancient tales that people, specifically braves who show enough courage, enough devotion or honor, can actually be blessed into being made into Mwest. One ancient tale tells of two young men who lived in a Wabanaki village, Little Thunder, who desired to meet the fairies and become Mwest, and the Badger, who loved Brown Fawn, the chief's daughter. However, the chief was known to set perilous tasks for any suitors that would come to his daughter. One day, the ancient hero Gloosclap sent a messenger, the Loon, who brought news that the magician would grant a wish to any youth who sought him out. The two men, dressed in their best feathers and armed with bows, set out on the perilous journey to Glooscap's lodge. The journey was fraught with dangers and perils, yet after 7 long years, the two young men reached Glooscap, who welcomed them in. Little Thunder wished to become Mwest to help Badger win the heart of Brown Fawn, and Badger wished to marry Brown Fawn and lead his people to greatness. Seeing how they overcame the journey, Glooscap agreed to grant their desires. He transformed Little Thunder into a Mwest and gifted him a magic flute. He then instructed them to sail his stone canoe back to the chief's lodge, where the Badger would win Brown Fawn's heart. They sailed back to the chief's village, where he agreed to give Brown Fawn to Badger if he could bring the head of the great yellow horned serpent. That night the Mwest charmed the serpent with his flute, while Badger cut off its head. They presented the head to the chief, who then challenged Badger to coast down the treacherous mountain with 2 other warriors. The Mwest helped his friend Badger by magically overtaking the warriors and helping him win the challenge. Next, the chief challenged Badger to a race against his greatest runner, and then a swim upriver against a man known as the Sea Duck, and the Badger won each challenge with the help of his friend Mwest. The chief, admitting defeat, finally gave Brown Fawn to the Badger. They returned to the Wabanaki in Glooscap's stone canoe, where he welcomed them back personally, blessing their union, and gave blessings to the new Mwest, where he joined the other fairies with his magical flute. Badger and Brown Fawn went to live peacefully in their village, raising a family of their own. Hey y'all, I just want to take a moment and ask that you help me hit that big goal of 500 subscribers. And I also want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you who have subscribed as we explore this wild world we live in. And to always remember, as Terence McKenna once said, the world isn't stranger than we suppose. It's stranger than we can suppose.